We hope that such conversations will contribute to change in mindset and attitude about women and girls' human rights and lead to a shift in our culture of impunity. Today, we will have had Ms. Yeman Sarah Thompson on media development professional to discuss the epidemic of online violence against women and girls. Unfortunately, our guest is not present, so we're going to go ahead and stay on topic. We hope that this is going to be an interactive session as we, think about, interrogate, look at why this is an issue to consider. So, online violence against women and girls, we say online violence against women and girls, we understand that it happens against a lot of different people, but it disproportionately affect women and girls, especially women and girls who are journalists, advocates, politically active women and girls, opinion writers, um, any woman who have an opinion on social issues or political issues. So there was a study carried out by the International Center for Journalists, ICFJ, and is based on a global survey of journalists from 125 countries. This was done by UNESCO. And it was made of long form interviews with journalists and experts with two big data case studies assessing over 2.5 million social media posts directed at prominent journalists, especially females, who are award-winning journalists. And these women are vocal, these women are fearless. But the public, our society has transferred misogyny online. Just how it happens against women in the physical, offline, it has been transferred online. Misogyny is the main frame through which the violence takes place. So the discussion paper provides hard facts and detailed analysis on key findings. And there are tactics that this form of violence against women and girls use. Disinformation, to discredit the women as a way of undermining the substance of the matter being talked about. So this involves, just coming out with information that aren't true and spreading it. It's just making it go viral, whether through Twitter or on Facebook and other popular platforms, attacking them on their Instagram page and sending them threatening emails. But a disinformation can be effective because I don't know, inflammatory things usually just go wild. So, and this is used to discredit this woman and to undermine the substance. So there is an issue. We're not talking about the issue, but then we leave out the issue and start attacking a journalist's character. And sometimes, and in the case of this information, it's not even, um, information that is true. But this is used to attack that woman, and then that is what becomes the focus. This information can heighten attacks on women. There are other tactics, the one that is popular in our circle that I have noticed is the one that has to do with spreading or sharing of very private, very personal, very intimate moments of a female, like private image sharing, private video sharing. There is non-consensual. So we didn't. I think she wouldn't consent to that. Those kind of videos that just go out in the public domain without a woman knowing about it. So these are all means tactics to silence um really vocal women. I mean, like I said, it happened to ordinary women and girls, but the level that this research was done is, mm, for professional women, especially advocates and journalists and women who write opinion articles or opinion pieces in prominent news outlets. So, what are our thoughts? What are our thoughts on these kind of issues? Feel free to share your thoughts and stay on the topic. On this platform, I want people to engage, I want people to participate, but I will engage with those who will stay on the topic. Now, when it comes to mainly journalists online, they use comments as a way to get feedback. In the case of journalists, comments are a way to get feedbacks or to engage with your audience. Comments allow readers to respond to an article instantly, asking questions, pointing out errors, giving new leads. At their best, comments threads are thoughtful, they are enlightening, they are funny. Online communities where readers interact with journalists, they are healthy and there are ways to enrich the process. Unfortunately, it's not the case when it comes to online violence comments, those ones against women. So, for instance, The Guardian reported a new research into their comment threads provided the first qualitative evidence, quantitative evidence for what female journalists have long suspected. The articles written by women attract more violence and dismissive trolling than those written by men, regardless of what the article is about. They say, although the majority of their regular opinion writers are white men, although the majority of our regular opinion writers are white men, we found that those who experience the highest level of abuse and dismissive trolling were not those men. The 10 regular writers instead who got the most abuse were 8 women, 4 white and 4 non-white, and 2 black men. So you see the violence is targeted against people in a minority most times. So if it's not women and if it's targeted against men, then it will be a black man or a gay man. 2 of the women and most of the men were gay. And of the 8 women in the top 10, one was Muslim and one Jewish. And guess what? The 10 regular writers who got the least abuse, all men. So, how should digital news organizations respond to this? How should digital news organizations respond to this? Social media platforms and news organizations said they were still struggling to respond effectively. They still were saying that they're not sure how to deal with this issue. When these women and girls turn to their employers, not much to nothing is done. According to the ICFJ research with UNESCO, some of the responses employers tell women and girls range from "oh, grow a thick skin" or "stay away from controversial issues." Or what did you do to provoke these comments? The same kind of thing. We ask women, or what did you wear in case of domestic violence? Okay, what did you do to him? So that's what employer. These are some of the responses. Women in advocacy, in the media, even in politics. Their own political parties would tell them, well, then just don't speak. We'll take care of it. And the thing is, this kind of way of handling the issue leads to self-censorship, or a take women out of the discussion, and it adds to the gender gap, to the active participation of women and girls. Yet we come and we judge and say, oh, these women are not assertive. Oh, these women, they don't like to go into spaces, but they don't want to take up leadership. Yet they cry that they're being excluded. But the society, we fail to look at how the society um, creates a hostile environment. How society does everything through misogyny and sexism to keep women out of certain spaces. So, yeah, some of them will say, don't read the comments, or better still, switch them off altogether. And many have done just that. Many of these women have done that. They don't read the comments. The guest we had last week, Marian Combs, I was listening to her interview with this New York Times opinion writer, and she was saying how that's what she was told. And so she stopped. Initially she had argued, but I need to know what the audience is saying so that I can be able to, and everybody needs feedback. And most of the time they say it's good. And then she was told, well, yeah, but there is just one, and this is a well-meaning person. There is just one that could just keep you at 3 o'clock a.m. A really terrible one. So she stopped. She said it was affecting her mental health. So she's like, yeah, even though I know I pace people up by my opinion, you know, let me not put myself in a place where I'm going to be embracing insults on my person. There are a lot of different great journalists, women, who say, I do not check my notifications. And then how do they even know when a friend is giving them great feedback? Or if someone is reaching out with something related to what they just share or discuss? Some of them have those things on perpetual mute. Some of them will say, unless it's someone that I really know, a close friend, I do not check my notification, because that's what they're being told. Just switch it out altogether. So many disable their comment threads. Some do not open their notification. Most women notification are on perpetual mute, or they only respond to people they are really close with as friends. But in so many cases, journalism is enriched by responses from its readers. So why disable all comments when only a small minority is a problem? But is it really a small minority? So anyway, the Guardian decided to do a survey or research, And they said we decided to treat the 70 million comments that have been left on the Guardian, and in particular the comments that have been blocked by moderators. Usually they will block those comments. So they block comments over a period of time. They decided to go through them and categorize them. They based their research on that as a huge data set to be explored rather than a problem to be brushed under the carpet. Most of these comments were abusive, misogynistic, sexist, dismissive trolls, and some of them they were blocked because they were off topic, like I usually do here, and I tell us stick to what we're discussing. If you're really interested in women and girls' well-being and to have an equal society, and you come on this platform, we will know that you're interested. Your interest will show by the kind of questions you're going to ask, by the kind of comments you're going to make. If you're going to go off topic, you're just telling us that you're not hearing us. You're not listening to what we're saying. So then it makes it, you're just telling us there's no need to spend our the limited time we have to put our issues out there so that we can be able to create a shift. There's no need to spend those. It's not a wise way to spend that time engaging with you. So this is what they do. The comments that are off topic, they block them, and they all made up the 70 million comments. But people, online attacks have real life impacts. They affect women and girls' mental health and productivity. Also, there are some people who use legal harassment. Is becoming increasing. Women don't tell their experience. The society say, but who she told? But they need to tell. They need to talk about these things. But they didn't tell anyone. How would know it happened if they don't come out and say? Women go up and share. Women and girls go out and share these experiences. They are threatened with lawsuits, quote unquote defamation, just for explaining what happened. It's not like it didn't happen. You share what happened. And then there is legal harassment, you know. The statistics on the mental health of women and their families as a result of online violence is off the chart. Most women in these fields are in therapy. Most of them are in therapy. So we generally tell women how to be safe in the face of sexual gender-based violence. You know, um, a month or two ago, I was trying to really get the vice president of Liberia to be able to talk to us on a new day, focus on Liberia, and just share her perspective, where she coming from with this suggestion that women need to do more. Even though she said parents, she focused mainly on mothers doing more to keep their children safe. And I was thinking, what kind of life is living if you have to live in consistent, continuous, perpetual hypervigilance? Like you take your child under your arm to the bath. I don't know. I, I didn't have the opportunity to for us to talk so that she could explain the issue that she was talking about, what children and women are raped. Go to the bathroom in your own house, leave the child in the living room or with her family. So let me not get off topic, but it's just related to that's the same kind of mindset. As society, we say women should keep themselves safe. Have we ever really thought about how much energy goes into avoiding violence against us? I mean, when I say us, I mean women and girls. The work that goes into feeling safe goes largely unnoticed by society, even by the women doing it, and by the wider world. And yet, women and girls are the first to be blamed when bad things happen. What kind of world does it show us? Like what I was asking, where women and girls have to live in hyper vigilance, whether online or offline, in their home, in a church, physically. I mean, just walking down the street, but just barely existing, being a girl, going for a walk, going to jog for some of us, right in your community. You put a earpiece in your ear just to block out. Still, guys will can't walk you, or they become in your face or blowing home. I mean, what kind of word does it show us where women and girls have to live in hypervigilance like that? They shouldn't have an opinion. They shouldn't be successful or professional. Liberian women sum it up in a cry that states, "We are unprotected." So, before I wrap up this section, let me see what you have to say. Let me see what you have to say if you out there. All right, so I see we don't have any question relating to the topic being discussed or comment. So, as I was saying, we put all the burden on women and girls to keep themselves safe. Government is supposed to protect its citizens, not just one portion of the citizen, not just men and boys or men, leaving them unchecked to harm others. So the burden can just be on citizens in as much as an adult or responsible citizen, you need to keep yourself safe by sometimes being in your own house and then you get raped there. You're supposed to make sure that doesn't happen. I'm still trying to figure out how to do that. But government needs to keep its citizens safe and don't allocate responsibility onto women and girls. Social media platforms need to do better to protect women and girls on their platforms. And there was a conference that was held in 2020 in Paris about that, where women came together and called on the major social media platforms: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, that you need to protect women and girls. Misogyny has transferred online. I mean, it's just ridiculous that you just do an ordinary Twitter. You're trying to add. I get confused with our society. I followed this girl, this Liberian girl, trying to do her best, doing so amazingly. At least based on my standard, what I've noticed. But then guys will come on her and be like, "You too fine to be doing comedy. Find something better to do." Okay, if she goes to do something else, someone will say, You don't. You not supposed to be prostitute." I don't know. So these companies were called upon to take steps to do more, and they were able to, after they were held accountable by women all over the world. They came out, they came up with policies, and women said, "We're watching." These women leaders said, "We're watching," and I share that. You can check out the women communication. We're watching over the next few years to see how you are going to enforce these policies, and for us to see tangible result and shift in a way the audience, in a way women participate in digital spaces and feeling safe. So while we talk to call on government to do better, to create policies, to legislate against, laws against violence against women online and in digital spaces, and while we call on social media platforms to play their part, as a society, we also need to change the story on violence prevention and well-meaning safety advice. Whether you're a journalist or you're ordinary well-meaning person, you're a consumer of media, we are the one who share stuff. We share stuff like people share stuff with me. Look at your sisters, showing girls being raped, dancing naked in the presence of Arab men. But then your hailing for that kind of video is, look at your sister's life they're living. Is accusing those girls, not even considering they may have been trafficked. And you see this whip in the hands of the men. They are being made to do the things they're doing, being used as sex slaves. So we need to change the stories. Yeah, if they had not gone there, who will willingly just sign up to go into a situation where they will be trafficked or they will be used as sex slaves? They are sex workers, but they're not sex slaves. People choose life if they want to. But we're talking about cases where people did not choose them, they were misled. If we're sharing those kind of things, we need to be mindful. Somebody try to share something about, sharing nude videos and then accusing the girl. Where is the guy? So as society, we need to change the story on violence. Yeah, but and I tried to talk to someone about it. They were like, "Well, she's not supposed to make that kind of did she make the video for you? Do you know what is happening in the relationship? People have their private moments and then someone decide they will shame women. Most of these things you do not see the men involved. Even if there was a man involved, was it for public consumption? Did she consent? So we need to change the story on violence prevention and well-meaning safety advice, because it makes it harder for women and girls to speak out and to hide the amount of work they are already doing to trying to check out the right amount of panic. We could be the generation that ends violence against women and girls. Hence a new day. Let's check out how we engage with issues that concerning women and girls. We could be that generation that ends violence against women and girls. If we can just start by changing, with not changing women's behavior, or that don't make certain video, or don't go to certain places, don't talk about certain issues, don't read just don't do this, don't do that. At the end of the day, don't even exist. Because some of us try to share with older well-meaning women too in our lives, and they'll be like, well, don't go running, do your exercise with YouTube video in here. They're like, I can't believe it. So if we can just start by changing, by trying not to change women behavior in the stories we tell, rather by focusing on the structures and systems that encourage, that create the possibility, the environment for these kind of things to happen at the rate at which they happen, we can all have a new day for women and girls in quality and for a better world. Okay, we're going to stop here and we're going to take a break. We'll be right back after the break to continue with to touch on conversation from last Sunday. Again, please feel free to ask a question, leave a comment that related to the topic being discussed. We'll be right back. Okay, we may have to continue. We may have to continue. Oh, well, we'll be right back after this break.
What if money can do? What if money can do? What if money can do? Well, what if money can do? What if money can do? What if money can do?
This August, the All Liberian Unity Festival comes alive in New York City, USA. The 3-day event will run from August 26th to the 28th. It promises to be a whole weekend of festivities with top Liberian artists rocking the stage. Activities to include county meet soccer games, red, white, and blue welcome on the boat, the Red Carpet Award Night, and the Invincible 11 Mighty Barrow will be climaxing the weekend as we barbecue together. Come and see the Lofa Judem, the Bassa Judem, the Pella Judem, Nimba Judem, the Big Time Judem, the Grand Judem, and the Congo Judem, the December Judem, plus all other Judem rocking the boat on the award nights, including the Black American Judem. Don't forget our series Judem, and the NGO Judem will be there too. What are you waiting for? Do your reservations now and be part of the first ever Unity Festival in the city of New York. Come rocking your national colors and repping your county. Our jerseys will be out soon. For more information and reservations, contact 9299556227.
What if money can do? What if money can do?
At Focus on Liberia, we discuss everything Liberia, from education to politics, arts and culture, entertainment, agriculture, history, religion, family, and technology. Focus on Liberia uncovers and showcases the best of Liberia and shows the world the truth about Liberia. We educate, elevate, and promote all things Liberia. We conduct interviews, panel discussions, debates, and more. Tune in to Focus on Liberia on Facebook and YouTube and be a part of the stories that make up the news. This is...
Thank you for staying with us. We are talking about social issues that disproportionately affect the disadvantaged women and girls. And then interestingly, we get an advertisement that sounds like it's objectifying women and girls. I wish I knew ahead what was coming. But anyway, hopefully we will rectify um, what the program will continue to restate the essence of this platform. Let me see whether I can. Somebody says, Stanley Thomas Sayon say watching. Fakes Electronics say FOL best in a business. Thanks for another great show. Another great show. Thank you, um, Stanley. No, not Stanley, but Fakes Electronic. All right. No. Oh, I'm sorry. this this was not meant to. That was not what I wanted to put there. Again, like I said, we try to just stick to topics. So let's stay on track, please. So let's just go back to. All right. What is Josh saying? Josh E. Elliot Jr. This is educated. Thank you, Josh. So let's go back to. Oh, let's go to last week. Let's go to last week. We were talking about um, trauma informed reporting. I wanted to touch on a few things to emphasize, kind of reinforce what we talked about last week. The mainstream media, when mainstream media is reporting on gender issue, most times it reports valued gender bias because our word is gender bias. It's sad that if you are not discriminated against, you are not aware, or you choose to be oblivious to that, to the experience of people who are discriminated against. So, mainstream is predominantly male, the lens is male. So, they value gender, what story has to do with women and girls, they value gender bias. We do not tend to think in terms of what we are not aware of. That's why, like for instance, people don't just sit, they don't just sit around and get up and say to themselves, I'm going to be hearing or seeing how women are mistreated in our society. We become aware, the public become aware of these kind of things when the media share them. But the mainstream media would not. So if you decide to delve into trauma informed reporting, you are bringing a diverse perspective to the media landscape. So you cannot be following the mainstream set or framework of reporting. Otherwise, you're going to end up being gender biased and you're going to cause harm. I'm going back to this issue because after last Sunday show, I got a lot of private messages from victims of insensitive, well, how should I say, trauma reporting, or from people. whether through social media, online, or physically in Liberia, they're reporting on trauma issues. There were a lot of survivors, there are a lot of victims that reached out personally, and their stories were so heartbroken. And throughout the week, and I had to be telling people I'll go back over it next Sunday because I really don't have the time, you know, to talk to you during the week. I'm at work, or yeah, I have the weekend. But people are hurting from this kind of way of reporting, that do not take into consideration that there needs to be training done in this area. So we all want diverse reporting. For me, I personally like unconventional way of reporting. That really take into consideration the lives of the ordinary people, and how issues affect the daily lives of ordinary people, but how to go about doing these things. How do we empower? So the question is, if you want to know, how do we empower survivors and victims in telling their stories? Somebody said, oh, so one of, a lot of the stories that were shared, that I don't want to mention, but it really did cause harm. Like, people felt set up on some of the platforms, that he or she just set me up, just called me to interview me about this and that happened to me. And then the public were just attacking me, and people were just judging me, and people were making comments, writing comments, people who don't know me. And I left that place. For the first 2 weeks, I just wanted to do something to myself. We don't want to be a part of harming people. As media, that's not what we want to do. We don't want to get done talking to someone, or uh, quote unquote say we're creating, providing platform for them to tell their stories, and then they leave and want to hurt themselves, want to suicide, because they're receiving the kind of harsh judgment and backlash that sometimes our reporting of these kind of stories result to. How do we then empower survivors and victims in telling their stories? Maybe begin with giving them or respecting their agency. For instance, how they want to be seen, as survivors or as victims. Like last week, we briefly in passing just mentioned, there are some people that are still processing what happened to them. They consider themselves as victims. They just been victimized. They think they have been hurt, they have been harmed. Something bad has just happened to them. So they are a victim of that circumstance or that situation. They want the public, they want us to know. They want to be in that place in a moment. So stare at, to acknowledge that this thing has happened to me. It's not them playing victim. Because when we want to dismiss people pain, sometimes we resort to that kind of guilting them. Oh, you're just playing a victim. No. Is us, is them saying, I'm not ready yet to move past this pain. It just happened. Or I haven't processed it. So we need to check with them, respect that. And then there are some who say, I've moved past it, or this person thought this could hurt me, but I'm a survivor. It has made me into this person. So it's up to them. That's why we use these terms when we are talking about, for people, for some of us who in trauma reporting and into recovery based field studies, even working alongside domestic violence survivors or victims, we use those together. So those people who are being impacted are the ones who decide. And then ask yourself, Why am I reporting this story? If you're a journalist, why am I reporting this story? To get clicks? Just because it's audacious? Because those are the kind of stories that people will click on quick. So you want to get fast click? When you're reporting trauma, how do you interview a trauma survivor? Do you want to bring attention to the issue to get help for them and bring change in a system rather than creating more trauma? Last week, our guest said we've done enough of reporting individual stories. Even in the United States, we used to report a lot, focus a lot on when we reporting on gun violence, we focus a lot on the victims. Now, and not much have changed over the years. So now we are interrogating, we are looking at systems and structures, institutions, what is being done for policies to be made so that people's safety can be guaranteed. So it's the same thing. Why are you interviewing someone who has gone through a traumatic situation to get in help to change the system? So before you go into this kind of reporting, that's what you should be asking yourself. Your questions cannot be accusatory. You can be accusing people or cynical or critical. Like some of the ridiculous things we hear people asking people, why did you get in his car in the middle of a survivor explaining or a victim explaining that, oh, so I was standing waiting for the rain, and then he stopped and said, oh, let me, because she knows him, is that neighbor. This particular story, the little girl said that's the neighbor. And then uncle stopped the car and said, let me take you home. And then instead of taking her home, takes her to his house. Oh, but why you went to his house? In the middle of her explaining, I don't know what are the question, the person asking the question intended her to open the car while it's moving and jump out. I don't know. But these are the kind of questions we want to guard against. You can be careful so that you do not run the risk of libel. And at the same time, you can show empathy by framing it. Not like, what proof can you provide? Instead, maybe say, and last week guest mentioned, I said something like, I'm sorry for what you went through. Oh, she didn't. But usually that's how I start with people when I listen to the story. I would like to take this, and then if you're a journalist, I would like to take this to my editor. How can you help us make this case undeniably blah blah blah? You can put the victim or survivor at ease by encouraging them to come with somebody when they're doing on a day or the time they want to be ready to do the interview. But hey, do not pressure people into granting you interview just so that you get clicks. Well, most of the times we're in a hurry, something just happened to someone, and we want to be the first quick to put that out. So the person is not even ready yet. They're still in shock, or their brain has shut down. They block out that experience and will be like, but you need to tell the people, oh, but I'm just trying to, manipulating the person and saying you're just trying to help them to put a story out there so that people can hear it and do what? To do amen, yeah, and then judgment. But why she went there, but why this, but why that? Mainly will be focused and never on I mean, it will be focused on the survivor or victim and never on the perpetrator or the system that create this kind of environment for us to just live like this. So for trauma reporting, reporters should care about people more than stories. I learned that way immediately after the war when we had Google, and as I know we still have that in Liberia, international Google. But it was like every week there was a workshop. I know they used to at one point say Liberia is the capital for workshop of the world. Try improve yourself. They may not have a course in trauma reporting at the Mascon department. That's why they have trainings and specialized trainings. Some of us, the problem is pride. You, I don't know. When some For me, I'm still learning. I continue to until I'll pass away. Because to get to the point where you think that you already have learned, you're too big for some kind of training section or something, and the world continue to evolve. People growing around you, you talking, and then you say you're at we cause more harm with that kind of attitude and mindset. So as I was saying, so going through the trainings, you will learn that reporters should care about people more than stories. I mean, for this kind of, like I said, I started by saying how mainstream report on women and gender. So we want to be diverse. So this is not mainstream, but mainstream is predominantly male, and they use male's lens is gender bias. That is a fact. To reframe the coverage of trauma and coverage, because they are sensitive and complex issues, journalists are trained in specialization in journalism schools, at least in most parts of the world. I don't know about where I come from. They are trained in specialization in journalism schools. Therefore, news entity or corporations, news outlet need to invest in training their reporters. And I've been able to speak with some of our strong entrepreneur and people who running media outlets or media houses in Liberia in private and say, hey, this is what I noticed. Can you do some training for these people? So they need to invest in training their reporters. When it comes to SGBV issues or GBV issue, the heads of most media institutions are mainly male. As I stated from the beginning, therefore they have gender bias. They tend to easily and quickly identify with the accused because of their common gender, then identify with the accusers. No matter how many accusers there are as compared to a single accused, or even if it's one. So, I hope I was able to speak to the issue for some of you who were able to reach out last week and throughout the week. Some of us see you, we hear you, we're sorry for what you went through, why you continue to go through. We hope there will be justice. You will get justice. We hope you will heal. We hope our society, as this platform is about that, we hope our society will have a shift in mindset and attitude when it comes to women and girls. I'm about to close. Media needs to approach the work as serving the community when it comes to GBV, trauma related. We need to approach the work as serving the community. And this includes building and restoring victims' trust of the system and building and restoring the public trust. So this requires continual reporting of issues with victim and survivor experience perspective, as opposed to a one-time thing or reporting a situation and moving on. One of the survivors who spoke to me this week said, one of the persons just had me on a platform and said, I'll get back to you. And never. I called and called and called and called and message. And this person never got back to me. And I felt so bad for months and beat myself up with regret. Like, why did I even do it in the first place? So we don't want to leave people in that place. We heard our last week guest. It was not a one-time thing. In fact, when she could not see that this is going to, that her institution is going to treat this with the level of diligence that the survivors and the victims deserved, she resigned her 23-year job. So hopefully for change will continue, we can engage in the practice that we entail continual reporting of these issues with victims and survivor experience and perspective, as opposed to a one-time thing of reporting a situation and moving on. Unlike the conventional media framework, which is just get your story out and done for the day. I hope I was able to speak to someone. Together, let's work for change, for a new day for women and girls. We are ending this broadcast for today. We begin with online violence against women and girls. And then we are ending now with being sensitive in reporting trauma issues, especially SGBV issues. We hope for a change. We hope for a new day. We hope for examining of our attitudes and mindset. We hope for examining of our unconscious bias and our active ones. We want a new day. And hopefully we will experience a new day before the next generation. Thank you for staying with me. I'll talk to you another day, another time on Focus on Liberia. Take care and bye.
Lord, you said in your word, I should forget, the former things. You said, behold, you are about to do a new thing. You said you will do something new in my life. All the eyes of them that see it will marvel, but my enemies are shame, Lord. Please give me a new day. Give me a new day. Give me a new day. I don't want yesterday. All I want is a new day. Yesterday broke my heart. Yesterday brought me peace and frustration. I don't want yesterday.